Every time I would say I was coming out with a manifestation planner, the response was always lukewarm. And I felt like I had to talk people into the idea of it. So when I called around and told them this idea, everybody said, girl, this is it. This is you. This makes sense. I see it. This is genius of you. And that's how I knew I was on the right path. Everything I've did, from my gossip blog to XO Necole, all the things you saw is because I took a risk and I took a leap for my dreams. And I just believed the parachute would open. Hi, this is Necole Kane from My Happy Flo, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, we are throwing it back this week to episode 323 with the wonderful Necole Kane. Can't wait for you guys to listen to this one if you haven't already. Before we get into this episode, here's a word from our sponsor.
Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to the colorful world of Skittles. Skittles brings you a jolt of 5 fruity flavors in every bite, giving you the chance to taste the rainbow like never before. Break free from the ordinary day-to-day with the help of Skittles Chewy Candy. Skittles is a must in my candy jar. Movie snack, even my secret, so an afternoon pick-me-up. And I don't even care who knows it. Add a splash of joy to your day with Skittles. There's nothing better than fruity fun that tickles your taste buds. Taste the rainbow.
Today we have Necole Kane back in the guest chair. Necole was our episode 63 guest. If you have not listened to that episode, it's one of my favorites. We talk about reclaiming your health, wellness, and all that she went through to get her to the point of growing her brand at the time, XO Necole. On this episode, Necole is going to share why her newest company, My Happy Flo, feels right. It may have been where all her past experiences were supposed to lead her. My Happy Flo is a feminine wellness brand featuring a hero product that's an all-natural plant-based supplement that supports hormonal balance and helps relieve women of painful periods and unpleasant PMS symptoms. Necole is going to detail the importance of purpose and evolution and why My Happy Flo will be a game changer for women of color especially, and their health narratives. She also shares why it's so important to have resilience, consistency, and vision while dream driving. I love this episode because it's one about growth, and it's also a reminder to anyone listening that your path can change, your purpose can change, and that's okay, right? It's okay to step into a new dream with a new vision for your future, knowing everything you've been through serves as the foundation for a strong dream fulfilled. Y'all just gonna have to listen to the episode, but Necole just shares so many gems, and she's just so vulnerable and so transparent about all that she's been through. And I know it's gonna be inspiration to you listening that you gotta keep going with your own dream driving journey. If you enjoy this episode, I'm going to ask that you please share it with your communities. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're posting this to your Instagram stories, letting people know that you loved it. You can go to our Instagram page. We are Dreams and Drive, right? And also, guys, if you want to be part of our email newsletter, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join and sign up, and you'll get weekly email updates delivered right to your inbox. So let's get into this episode and hear from Necole. Hope y'all enjoy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. I love follow-up interviews because it's just a reminder to myself of how far I've come, but also it's the evolution for me.
Yeah, it's the evolution, most definitely. And it's funny because I made a little note of when we first started, right? Your episode was episode 63, and that aired early 2017. And it's funny because the title on that episode was Reclaiming Health, Legacy, and Purpose, right? And it's like, it wasn't about like media, what you were doing at XO Necole, but the major themes of that episode were those 3 things: health, legacy, and purpose. Like, what does that mean to you hearing it in 2022?
It's the epitome of where I am in life. Like, I'm focused on health, and not just my own health, but Black women's health in general. And that is my purpose. And that's going to be my legacy. I feel like I've done some amazing things in my lifetime, but I don't feel like anything is on the magnitude of what this will be one day. So I'm just glad to be on the path, living a life of intention.
I love that. And for people who may not, this is their first time, if they haven't listened to episode 63, right? In a nutshell, right? Let's give our listeners just like who was Necole Kane? Like, what were you? Not what were you, but you know, the 2-minute version of the journey that got you to 2022 Necole, and then we'll go on from there.
Child, she talking about the 2-minute version.
we could do 3 things: Necole Bitchie, then XO Necole, right? And then there's a lot in between.
People came to know me as a celebrity gossip blogger. I started my website, Necole Bitchie, in 2018, and I went on to be one of the biggest, most famous Black blogger on the internet. And I say that because I feel like back then you couldn't say Black celebrity blogger and not think of me first. And it's just because of the branding behind it. A lot of bloggers at the time were hiding behind computer screens because this is a scary space to put yourself out there. So I went on from, after 7 years of running NecoleBitchie.com, I shut that site down at the height of my career. And I say it was at the height because we were getting around 20 million page views a month. But I just knew God wanted more from me. And I wanted to live my life in a way that was purposeful. I just started, I had parents that passed away at the age of 41 and 42. And at the time I was 35. And I was like, there's no way if my life was cut short, I could spend the rest of my life being a spectator to celebrities' lives. And so I shut my site down, and it will be, by the time this episode airs, it will be 7 years. It will be the 7th year anniversary because it was July 2nd, 2015. And from there, I launched XO Necole, an empowerment and lifestyle platform geared towards women of color. And for me, at the time, I just didn't see a lot of sites geared towards Black women that were talking about our wellness, our mental health, our relationships and career. It was such a celebrity obsessed culture back then. Yeah. I launched that, and I just had a vision. I wanted young women to see themselves reflected in many different ways. And from there, 2 years later, my site was acquired by Will Packer, who, he had just released Girls Trip. Queen Latifah's storyline was, highly inspired by Necole Bitchie. even the way she put up.
I didn't realize that. Wait, it was with your permission, or was it just?
No. Okay. People were reaching out to me on Twitter, and they just kept talking about it. I said, finally, let me go watch this. And her being a celebrity, gossip blogger, the gossip girl of the group, and eventually shutting her site down, putting a note up on the website that, she just wanted to move on.
I just made that connection of y'all. It's so fun. I love Girls Trip, right? But I never thought about that before.
Yeah. And so, he bought the site in 2017. I stayed on board as the editor-in-chief. And it's been almost 5 years since the acquisition happened. So in the midst of that, last year, I launched a supplement brand for feminine wellness called My Happy Flo. We are a feminine wellness brand, changing the relationship that women have with their periods. We take the pain out of periods with our plant-based supplements that support hormonal balance, as well as alleviate heavy bleeding, cramping, bloating, and mood swings for a happier, healthier time of the month. So that is my, what I'm doing now. I'm so excited about it because for me, Black women have high rates of fibroids. They say 80% of Black women will have fibroids by the age of 50, like 60% by the age of 35. And those numbers are crazy. And people may say, well, what do periods have to do with fibroids? Well, if you're having painful periods, it normally is a sign that you have a hormonal imbalance, estrogen dominance, and it also means that you could be at high risk of developing fibroids. But since they never taught us this, they always taught us that periods are supposed to be painful.
Yeah, like, that time of the month, get your heating pad and just suffer through it, right?
Yeah, take your painkillers or get on this birth control. And so we never knew this information before. So for me, My Happy Flo isn't just about the supplements that we have, which have helps support hormone balance so that you can lower those risks of getting fibroids, breast cancer, et cetera. But it's also about educating women on their menstrual cycles, something they never taught us in school. So I'm super excited for the work we're doing and to talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah, so I want to just go back a little bit in time because I was listening to the episode that you did with Nicola Matthews-Okome. I love Nicola on Side Hustle Pro. And you mentioned a little note that I'm like, this is interesting. So you said that when you got acquired by Will Packer, you actually kind of did have this idea of maybe launching out and doing a product-based business, but that kind of derailed it because you had got acquired and you kind of had to shift your attention to that. Looking back at it now, are you happy that you started it now instead of then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Will came approaching me about acquiring XO Necole, to be honest, I told him, well, he didn't even say acquire, he wanted me to be like head a brand that was coming out for women similar to XO Necole. I turned him down and gave him references of people I thought would be perfect. But he came back like every month around the same time just to see if I had changed my mind. I was studying holistic nutrition at the time. So I had a idea that I was going into a field more geared towards holistic health. I had gotten into fitness. So yeah, there was just so many lessons I needed to learn about running a business before I even launched into e-commerce. I needed to know more about my audience. There's just so many things that needed to happen before I got to this place 4 to 5 years later where I actually took the leap and decided to launch this thing.
I love that. You know, it's something that I was talking about with the past guest the other day of this idea that you might not even have been ready for it when you thought when the idea first comes to you, sometimes you're not yet ready to execute and you kind of have to go through life and continue kind of dream driving until it's the right moment, right? Talk to me about that dream that you had that kind of put everything into perspective.
In terms of
My Happy Flo. I know that you mentioned that, you had this dream and it came to you in a dream, right?
Well, it was more so the week that My Happy Flo came to me was I had just got on Instagram and I promoted this DIM supplement. DIM is one of the hero ingredients in My Happy Flo, and it's a plant-based estrogen balancer. And something didn't feel right about me promoting it. Like, I don't know if it was because I'm like, I don't know who the founders of this is. I don't know if they, care about Black women's health in the way that I do. Like, it was so many things. And I remember pulling the post off of my stories a few hours later. But that week, I kept seeing 222. 333, 444, like all these triple numbers every time I looked at a clock on my phone. And I was like, what is happening? And I do believe that we do get signs and people that visit us in our dreams from past lives. Like, I have no living grandparents or parents. So when I feel like they're trying to speak to me or get my attention in some way, I listened. So I remember going to get a notebook and sitting like kind of locking myself in my bedroom and was like, I'm just going to be in stillness and whatever comes to me, that's what they've been trying to say. And what came to me first was that I was supposed to release a supplement brand. And so I wrote down 3 things like, okay, I'm going to have an immune boosting bundle. I'm going to have a hormone balance bundle, and I'm going to have a digestion bundle. And it was like, girl, you doing too much. Like, if you could just choose one of these, what would it be? And it was like, I would have the hormone balance one that helps women with their periods. And so that's how My Happy Flo was born. And I came up with the name like within an hour. And I was like, wow. I called every friend I knew and said, I just came up with my $100 million business idea.
What was the feedback? Because sometimes that could go 2 ways, right? Either people support you or people like, girl, come on now. What was it like for you?
What's so crazy is that like right before this, I was trying to release a manifestation planner because I had just taken a course called Start and Scale with Founder. And I was like, oh, I need to release. Now I need to go into e-commerce. I was pumped up. And I felt like since I, manifest a lot and I talked about manifestation, that was the way to go. But every time I would say I was coming out with a manifestation planner, the response was always lukewarm. And I felt like I had to talk people into the idea of it. So when I called around and told them this idea, everybody said, girl, this is it. This is you. This makes sense. I see it. This is genius of you. And that's how I knew I was on the right path, because it was in alignment with, during the whole pandemic, I was Instagramming supplements all pandemic. I was putting people on the supplements.
I remember that. What you should be taking, what you don't realize is affecting you in this way, that
Absolutely.
way. Absolutely. It was educating us.
Digestion. I mean, I have a whole Instagram highlight full of, and then I had highlights full of women who I had told about DIM and other ingredients who came back a month later like, girl, my period is amazing now. Thank you. So I had everything I needed, and I had prepped the audience for this moment. I had been talking about DIM and I3C, two of the ingredients in My Happy Flo since 2018.
That's amazing, right? And it's you didn't know, not that you didn't know in retrospect, right? But it all makes sense now that you're here. You can look back and be like, yo, this really made sense. And the thing that I think is so amazing is just the name. And you might have thought about this too, right? When I think of My Happy Flo, of course you think of flow, period, better periods. But I even think about a mindset and a state of being, right?
Absolutely.
Even for you personally, this was the moment where you had a happy flow. Does that make sense? Not saying that, everything else before this, you weren't happy or you weren't at peace. But to me, I also see it just reads zen and alignment. Whenever I see those three words, My Happy Flo.
Because it's about being in the flow of life. This year, things that I've realized I was kind of operating in a state of everything was resistant. And when I'm in this state of resistance, I'm knowing, okay, this ain't the right path, because the things that are for me are supposed to flow to me with ease. So for me, having flow in the name, it could mean so many things, just being in the flow of life. And for me, right before we launched My Happy Flo, we did a period survey that over 1,800 women, almost 2,000 women have filled it out so far, because it's still accessible. And I noticed that not only did 90% of the women that filled this out have painful periods they felt were disruptive to their lives, but they also talked about their periods in a way that sound like they were in a toxic relationship. It just... very, very, very negative way, thoughts about their periods. And your period is a part of your body. So we talk about body positivity, but how, the focus is on the outside, loving what's on the outside. And I want the focus to be loving what's going on inside as well. So we could be dressing fly and loving our curves and stuff. But if you're feeling negative about your time of the month, which to me, your period is a monthly report card into your overall health.
Yep.
And so it's working for you every month. It's almost like a free hormone test. And when it's painful, it's letting you know, girl, there's something developing, or your hormones are off. You have inflammation. The food that you're eating isn't agreeing with me right now. It's telling us all the things, but since we weren't taught how important our cycle is, we've almost been conditioned to hate that time of the month and talk about it negatively.
That's so true, because, first of all, that number 90%, that's alarming, right?
Alarming.
It's actually more than alarming. It's scary.
Absolutely.
Why do you think, or why is that number so high? Do you feel like it's just our overall health as a society, as Black women in general? Because I'm was it always that high? Was it, or is this something that as of late has become increasingly more of a problem for Black women especially?
Well, there's a few things. First, we have a lot like environmental right now.
Yeah.
We have a lot of what's called endocrine disruptors or xenoestrogens in our environment, and they mimic and alter your hormones. And so xenoestrogens can be found in household products. They're in water bottles, the BPA, fragrance in your candles if you don't have essential oil-based or soy-based candles. So when, I'm burning candles, I'm like, I'm altering my hormones right now.
I saw that. And then you don't realize that your air filter kept getting
oh my
clogged.
God, it kept getting black. Like it would go black within a week. Heating up food in Tupperware, it's in our food. Like, most animal-based products are fed or given hormones, and same with dairy products. And so these things are elevating our estrogen levels to a place where it's putting us at high risk for fibroids and breast cancer and those type of things. That's why you see young women coming on their periods at the age of 8 and 9 now. And so it's that. It's also vitamin D deficiency is really big, especially amongst African Americans because of our skin tone. We're not getting enough sun. We're wearing sunscreen, which lessen our exposure. So those things, you got chronic stress. You have birth control. Birth control is an endocrine disruptor.
One.
That's a huge one.
That could be its own podcast, right? That's its own episode. I saw that post that you had about that. And for me personally, like my mom, so I grew up in a household where I call my mom like the Dr. Sebi Whole Foods lady. Like we grew up in a house where she was very into holistic health. I remember like as a kid, like going to these doctors that would look into our eyes and tell us what was wrong with us. And like, as a kid, like I was like, Mom, what are you on? But now that I'm thinking about it as an adult, I'm really happy that she at least had some like foresight to like really give us a foundation for health. Because for me personally, I've never had like painful periods. So I've always wondered, like when people told me like, you mean like cramps every now and then? Like, like for me, it was just something that I didn't understand. So especially I think college, when you're living with like group of women and you realize that, wow, there are some people who this is really knocking them out, like
knocking them out, debilitating, like crazy. And they're bleeding through, clothes and blankets. And they're having, 14-day periods. That's not normal. Bleeding huge blood clots. That's not normal. But they never taught us what normal is.
And then that's sometimes when you go to the doctor, right? Because this is another thing. I think my sister was telling me, like, she went to the doctor complaining about, her periods, and they tell you to get on birth control, right? And then that birth control then leads you down a whole nother cycle. And it's like, why are you telling? I think what I want to say here is, I think it's also then like the healthcare providers, right? Them not truly understanding, or maybe them not realizing that you can't just treat this with another medication. I'm saying that with quotes, right? It's really, you have to go back to the root cause. And a lot of doctors aren't really thinking about that, especially when it comes to Black women. Like we already are at risk for so much more. Don't give us something else now.
Yeah. And I think, I think it makes me sad because a lot of OBGYNs, that's their go-to, but that's what they were taught in med school. Like if someone comes in with painful periods or hormonal acne, just put them on birth control. And the problem with that is that like it should be, like you said, find out the root cause. Because if they come in and what's causing it is PCOS or what's causing it is endometriosis, or they have a fibroid developing, and now you've given them synthetic hormones that throws their hormonal balance off even more, because most birth control is the way it works. It shuts off the natural production or alters the natural production of your own hormones and replaces them with the hormones in the birth control. But what happens, birth control are also mask symptoms for years. That's why women are like, well, I was on birth control, so my periods were fine. Then I came off and my periods went haywire. No, you had a condition from the start that they never diagnosed. And now you're sitting here like you've been on birth control over 10 years. This condition has worsened over 10 years. And now that you've come off birth control, now the symptoms of that condition are coming back, and you're so far gone that the only option is surgery. So that's why you see a lot of number of hysterectomies happening. And to be honest, about 90% of hysterectomies aren't necessary. So I just feel like there's almost like a war on Black women's bodies because they're taking advantage of the fact that we don't know the information. We don't know that we have other options outside of birth control or popping painkillers or the surgeries. And it's leading us down this path that has been very just detrimental to our health.
You know what put this all into perspective for me is when I got pregnant, right? So I have a son. He was born September 2020. And I remember just being so scared of epidurals. Like my whole pregnancy, I was like, I don't want to ever have to get an epidural. Because what they make you think about pregnancy is that you go into labor and then you have to get the epidural, right? And you have to do this and you have to do that. And I took that have out of my vocabulary because I'm like, wait, who actually said this? Who said that like you're supposed to and just do it? And, it's labor is supposed to be painful, right? And that's when I kind of took my health into my own hands. And it was when I realized there's so much that they aren't telling you. I got a midwife instead of an OBGYN.
Yes.
I got a doula. And I did so much research on just like the history of labor and the history of like the OBGYN and like, why are men delivering babies, right? Not saying that they can't. But when you think about it, right, it is kind of odd, right? Like, how is this man trying to tell me he doesn't even have a vagina and even know what's going on in here? But at the same time, when I say pregnancy, put this in perspective for me, because I just think that we're just told so many things and we just believe it. And we trust that, okay, this has to be the best answer for me, but there really are so many answers. Like I was able to have a drug-free, pain medication-free pregnancy, right? In a hospital.
Look at that.
Right? In a hospital, because just due to insurance, I'm like, all right, I'm not about to pay like $20,000 for a birth center, right? So but at the same time, it was like, no. And these nurses had to abide by what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
Because so many times healthcare providers make you think you have no choice and no options. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want people to realize is like, you do have the options and you can find other answers. And there can be a way in a world where like, I was able to still be in a hospital and have the birth that I wanted. I mean, it took work, right? And it wasn't easy, but I just think that as Black women, we owe it to ourselves to seek out these other health realities and just start really prioritizing that. Like I had a friend where just recently, I'm like, you know what? I want to be more plant-based. Not saying I'm 100% plant-based, right?
Yeah. And
she was like, why? Your recipes are going to be, your dinner's going to be so boring. I'm not coming over for dinner anymore. And I'm just wait. Girl, do you realize how she was really serious, right? And I'm like, it's really sad because if we just all made little changes in our health, we'd see so much differences. Like even just drinking more water, right? A little thing.
Absolutely, because that helps your digestion and digestion. Hormone health and gut health goes hand in hand. So if you're not detoxing, normally or having normal bowel or regular bowel movements, that messes with your hormones. I even started, and it's just something small, but I realized I had a hard time eating like tons of vegetables, especially green veggies. So I went and got me a cold press juicer and I juice them veggies every morning and have one green drink a day. Because I definitely, I think just us knowing just how all the pesticides and foods and just everything that's happening in our environment right now, it's just up to us to really take control of our health and get the information. And, like you said, you might want to go plant-based, like plant-based might not work for everybody, but like, I feel like I'm almost there with the plant-based, almost.
I'm like, I'll sprinkle it in every now. I still like my seafood a little bit,
Yeah,
so.
That's what I'm eating too. I eat seafood, but like I've taken chicken all the way out. I don't eat red meat. I eat ground turkey every now and then. But for the most part, I feel like I'm steering that way more and more. And it's just, I'm very aware of how different foods react to my body as well. So I'm taking notes as I'm changing things.
Dream drivers, as you guys know, I have a new baby on the block and I'm back in diaper mode full time. Life as a mom of two can be super chaotic, so I need a diaper brand that's reliable and works just how I need it. That's why I'm a Pampers Swaddlers mama. Fear no leaks, one of my biggest pet peeves with the new and improved Pampers Swaddlers. They now feature a blowout barrier at the back waist to help prevent up to 100% of leaks and even blowouts. Plus, the dual leak guard barriers at the legs help protect where those leaks happen the most. And you know, newborn days are poopy central, and if you don't have to deal with a mess during changing time as a mama, that's gold. I remember being traumatized those first few weeks with baby Axel. So with this new blowout barrier, it's so clutch because it means it's just one less thing I have to worry about. Less mess, less hassle, less stress, which means more smiles, more time enjoying that baby, and more dream driving. P.S. I love that Pampers Swaddlers is hypoallergenic, meaning I never had to worry about diaper rash. With Axel, and his skin was always so healthy, so I'm looking forward to that this time around too with the new baby. Go download the Pampers Club app today and earn Pampers Cash so you can try and fall in love with Pampers Swaddlers too. Tylenol Rapid Release Gels, your go-to option for fast, effective pain relief. Don't let pain slow you down. Be prepared for aches and pains after the big game or fun fall festivities. Tylenol Rapid Release Gels to help you enjoy life to the fullest. And now, introducing new Tylenol Precise, a pain-relieving cream with maximum strength lidocaine without a prescription. Get back to the activities you love with Tylenol Rapid Release Gels and Tylenol Precise. Find the power of pain relief today. Available now. Use as directed.
Walgreens knows you need your medications, but sometimes what you really need is a prescription for more time with your family or friends, or just more time to do what you want on a Saturday afternoon. That's why Walgreens offers same-day RX delivery to where you are. So you can get more than just your meds. You can get your prescription to save time at the pharmacy. And when you have pharmacy questions, which let's face it, we all do, Walgreens will be there for you with a helpful 24/7 pharmacy chat. So when you need to know, which med do I take before bed again? Or is it safe to have a glass of wine with my prescription? You can ask a Walgreens pharmacy expert that question, no matter where you are or what time of day it is. And that gives you more than just answers. It gives you your prescription for peace of mind. Delivery is available on eligible prescriptions only. See details at walgreens.com/prescription delivery.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a rush. Like, no one's telling you, all right, tomorrow,
cold turkey.
Right. No, like, of course, like, learn the journey and know that, like, it's a journey for a reason, right? It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
Right. I wanted to ask you, Necole, because I know we didn't even get to this part where, you know, you had the name for it, right? And then something you mentioned that interview with Necole that I thought was so amazing. And I think it happens a lot of times when it's right for us, is everything kind of started falling into place, right? Like you didn't have to stress about what's coming next because things kind of started falling into place for you. Talk to me about that. Like, what were the things that started falling into place so that you had you couldn't run from it, right? Once My Happy Flo is here, you couldn't say, never mind, this is not gonna
I think for me, I mean, once we got the samples back from the manufacturer, I took my audience on a journey through stories. Like, I remember posting the samples tub that had the date on it. And I was like, I'm cooking up something special. And I started asking them to help vote on packaging and that type of thing. But within like 2 months, there was a grant that came up. But to apply for this grant, you had to have a web presence. You had to have social media. So I had to hurry up, get a website up. I put it up on Wix first. Then I had to hurry up, put the website up. I mean, not the website, the social media. But I ended up getting a $10,000 grant through Neutrogena. And I remember I got to the part of the grant where you had to turn in a video. And I was like, man, what? Like, I wish they had mentioned this in the beginning. So I just got on my phone and made this little rinky-dink video really quick and ended up winning a $10,000 grant. And so with that $10,000, I decided, okay, I'm going to make the announcement that we got the $10,000 grant, but why don't I go on pre-order at the same time and see what happens? And ended up doing $25,000 in pre-order sales.
Wow. And how much was your price point at this point?
I think we were selling two months supply for $59.99. So $30 a bottle. So about $1. You getting $1. You spend $1 a day for amazing health, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we did 25,000 in pre-sales. And I was just like, if that's not a sign, but I feel like we did the 25,000 in pre-sales because I took them on a journey already. I was talking about the behind the scenes. I'm taking them in the warehouse and the production, on my Insta stories. We're doing, period surveys. So from the people who filled out the period survey, we had a mailing list that had accumulated of about, at the time, 1,200 to 1,500 people. So, and of course, we knew they had painful periods. So we could market to them directly. So it just was flowing. And I was like, yes.
With that word flow, right?
Flow. With the word flow. It was flowing. And I was like, and for me, it was in the 4th year since my acquisition of XO Necole. And as you grow, like I used to be really deep in the behind the scenes of XO Necole. Like I was leading things. I was the creative. I was strategy, but I was the visionary of a lot of things you saw come out of XO, from the podcast to the different event series. And so as we started to hire, I was getting pulled more from the things that I enjoyed and spending a lot of times on doing things that I didn't enjoy, whether it was human resources, whether it was just things that I didn't feel was my zone of genius. And so I needed a new challenge at that time because I started, I won't say hating the work, but it's like, wow, this is different than when I was bootstrapping and I was like the head of the site. Now that there's so many red tape that you got to go through when you have an idea versus me just doing, I'm a Virgo. Everything I've did from my gossip blog to XO Necole, all the things you saw is because I took a risk and I took a leap for my dreams. Yeah. And I just believed the parachute would open. And so, I mean, even when I came up with the idea for pajamas and lipstick, I knew that was going to be one of our biggest event franchise, a girls' night in, and so I remember paying for the first one we had out of pocket, my own pocket, because I had to have a proof of concept. But I say this to say, I needed a new challenge because I was no longer doing the things I loved anymore. And so My Happy Flo and setting up the brand, and I designed, if you look on the website, I designed the website. It's off of a template, but I designed that website. I solicited and came up with the concepts for the packaging and the inserts and all that. Those things just really fueled me again. It's like I found purpose again in my passion. So I love the work. Like I get up every day excited about what we have in store, and what I'm doing.
Do you ever think it's time, like for you, right? For people listening in, if someone's in this space where they're just not excited about something anymore, like what would you say? Like, when is it time to let it go? Or when is it time to find something new? Kind of like with a relationship, right? Like, when did you know? Well, you just spoke about it, but why was that so important to realize it's okay to kind of move on?
For me, my career and every site I've launched since Necole Bitchie has been in alignment with who I am and who I'm becoming. It's always the question of, is this in alignment with who I'm becoming? And so when I first started XO, it was in alignment with who I was becoming, who I desired to be. And so I think when it gets to a place where you feel like it's no longer in alignment for whatever reason, like we're in media, and to increase page views, it got to a point when I looked at XO Necole's site and I'm like, this is very celebrity. I tried hard to get away from celebrity. Why is there celebrities everywhere? You know what I mean? Like I felt like, oh shoot, there's a regression happening here and I'm progressing. And so, but again, when you're in media, you have to do things to keep your page views up. If people are into celebrity, then do more celebrity. And so I think it's that, like, constantly checking in with yourself. And I say every 6 months or every year, because we're constantly growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so you got to make sure that what you are doing every single day is supporting that growth. Because if not, you're going to end up stuck at some point. So for me, 7 years is always, 7 is the magic number. I just told you I left my celebrity gossip site 7 years ago. So it's been 7 years since I launched XO Necole. And so I get the significance of the number now. Like 7 is always the year of completion for me.
Oh, I love that. And it's funny because I was thinking about too, like, you don't ever want to wake up and not recognize who you are anymore, right? And it's
absolutely,
it's that thing that a lot of us are. I didn't even know with this podcast, there was a time where, like, the podcast world where you're looking at numbers, looking at growth. I'm like, dang, do I need to start talking about like sex and drugs and smoke some weed? And then people will listen to my podcast, right? But I'm realizing you also have to know at the core the core of your essence, right?
You got to be a drink champs,
right?
For entrepreneurs.
But it's also like, okay, of course there are some certain marketing elements that you definitely need if you want to grow, right? But you don't have to change the core of who you are. Like, I know people listen to Dreams and Drive because of the questions, because of the conversations, right? And I don't have to then change into a different industry just because that's what's popular, right? Because it might not be popular forever. And do I want to look back at it and will I be proud of it if I were to then change routes, right? So I think what you're saying here is so important because there's so many people who are struggling when they look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, do I like what I'm doing? And is it in true alignment with where I am and where I want to go? And sometimes you got to tell yourself, like, it's okay if you change. Like, it's okay to change. That's the biggest thing I think a lot of us sometimes fight, is just knowing that it's okay.
I remember Malik said to me in 2016, like, it's okay to change your mind because you may start something and within a year you're like, I decided I'm not going to really do this again. I think what's great for me, because I think we're going through it with social media, like it's a big thing to do reels now. I know I don't have time right now. I don't like, people are like, when are you going to get on TikTok? I am running a business and that business has operations, supply chain, marketing, PR, customer support, community building, social media. When do I have enough time to start plotting out storylines for a reel?
Right. And dances and the new sounds. Man, it's too much.
I got a point. I got to, go through and see what's trending. Like one day I may get there. So if you see me pointing and doing reels, somebody helping. Like I done brought in some, but right now I want to focus on, I have a good product. It has a lot of great reviews. How can I tighten up this customer journey? How can I, launch more digital products and education around this product, the importance of it, around hormone health and menstrual health? How can I build community? And so that's some of the things I'm just working on. I'm trying to lay the foundation before I go off and be the face of anything again.
And there's just so much opportunity for expansion too, eventually down the line, because your product is legit changing people's lives, right? Changing women's lives who are taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Changing. Here's the thing. We surveyed our customers in a post-purchase survey, and it doesn't just affect them the week of. Like, this is affecting these women's mental health, their intimacy, their relationships, their job performance, because they're calling out of work. And so many, their body image, how they view themselves, their self-esteem. This period complications, heavy bleeding, all the things are really affecting women's overall quality of life. So for me, I'm trying to improve your quality of life as well as help reduce your risk of getting, the fibroids, the PCOS, and all these different hormonal imbalances. So yeah, it has an effect on so many. You have women that there was one customer of mine and I believe she was bleeding from March to September. Now I can't say whether it was the jab. I'll call it the jab because you know how it is out here. But I was like, what? And she wasn't getting no answers from her doctor. And she started My Happy Flo and the bleeding ceased after like a week or so. But what? This woman just bled all these months. Anemia is at play.
I was going to say
deficiency.
iron, right? And that's going to affect so much other stuff. I know like during pregnancy, that was a big thing, like making sure your iron is right. And they kept giving me these iron supplements and they would make me throw up every time because they were like over the counter ones.
Yeah.
And then the one that I took was, what was it? It was like Nature's, like this other one that was like more, I found it in the health food store, right? And they're like, yeah, everybody takes this one. And that one, I was able to digest it a lot better. Like it was just a better supplement than the ones they were just, prescribing to you without even understanding what your true needs were.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing, like, getting back, I'm going to get to the iron thing for a second, but getting back to her, she hit me on DM one day and said, I'm dating again. Like that almost made me cry because it's like, this was such a huge hindrance to her life. And then and then I've seen women who thought they'd never be able to get pregnant from, someone that had PCOS and lost one of her tubes to just so many women who had fertility issues and they came back complications and they came back and said, girl, I was able to get pregnant after being on My Happy Flo a month or two, so it's just changing lives in so many ways. I will say with the iron, I was so happy we could put iron in My Happy Flo because it's hard for me to take iron supplements, period. A lot of times they give you constipation. And so it was a lot of like adjusting levels. Like we put magnesium oxide in My Happy Flo to help offset the constipation that iron usually gets. And we also put vitamin C to help with absorption of iron. And we have flaxseed, which has fiber in it. So that also helped offset the constipation. But what happened, the first formula, a lot of people are like, this is giving me, like I'm using the bathroom a little too much. Like this is giving me like a little bit of diarrhea. So with the formula that's on sale now, we actually cut the magnesium in half and it seemed like it worked perfectly. Like that's the formula that's probably going to be, this is the final formula for My Happy Flo. But I just sat and I took notes of customers and their feedback. And and if anyone would say, oh, this didn't work for me for whatever reason, I would get on the phone with them. I'm going through their diet. I'm trying to there's times I've seen and someone might have forgot to mention they're taking thyroid medication. And then it's like, okay, that's why, so I get on the phone so I can kind of pinpoint what's going on. Or it might be they're an avid coffee drinker and they're drinking coffee every single day, especially on their period. And it's like, oh, that's going to really give you more intense cramping. So My Happy Flo trying to do its thing, but there's a little bit of things working against it. So yeah, I'm super, super just, we get testimonials every day across all platforms. And I'm just so happy that women are taking their lives back.
You know what I love when I hear you, when I hear you talk about this, and the thing that I first thought of is like, you are not by trade or by training, like you're not a pharmacist, right? You're not a medical doctor per se, but you still went down the lane of launching a supplement brand. And I say that because I think that a lot of times people get scared because they think they don't have the qualifications, right? Like, what if you told yourself, Necole, you ain't no you didn't say that, right? Like, why is that so important to not thinking about what you can't do, right? But instead thinking about how you can approach it and how you can find the right people. Because I think that's something that a lot of us dream drivers, we stop the dream from happening before we even, what am I saying? We stop ourselves from even trying, right?
Yeah.
Because we think we don't have the qualifications.
Well, I mean, I did that at first. I had imposter syndrome. I'm like, why would people believe me with this? Especially if you haven't been following me on Insta stories. And I felt like people were going to think that I was working with some big white company that just grabbed me to be the face, to make it look like it was my product versus it actually being. But I mean, I've studied vitamins for so long, holistic nutrition.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually in a hormone health certification that I finished in August because I wanted to not only learn about like estrogen, which estrogen dominance, but I wanted to learn about the adrenal fatigue, thyroid disorders, cortisol, insulin, and all those different other hormones we have in the body and the symptoms around it and how to fix it and what the nutrition would be like. Like I wanted to really be an expert in this. If I'm going to be out here doing podcast interviews, I need to know what I'm talking about, because if I'm given a platform to speak, look, God took a former gossip blogger and said, I want you to go into hormone health and I want you to use your platform to educate people. And so I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to get the job done by any means necessary.
Right. And along the way, so much things have come your way, right? Just by you saying, all right, I'm going to see where this takes me. And I know, like you said, you knew that it was something you had to do. Let's talk a little bit about challenges, because of course, with any dream driving journey, there's going to be times where you're like, dang, what did I get myself into? Was there ever a time where a challenge just had you saying, I want to give up, but you didn't? Or maybe not even you want to give up. Like, what was just a huge hurdle that you had to plow through in order to keep this dream going?
I think, it's funny because we put up pre-sale and I ended up jumping off a ledge. Like I ended up ordering 5,000 bottles initially of My Happy Flo. So I already knew this was going.
Like, I believe in this all the way.
I didn't order 500 or 300.
Wait, do you mean just the bottles or actually the bottles?
No, the product.
Okay.
So I ordered inventory of 5,000 to begin with. But pre-orders only covered a bit of that. So I had about 18,000 more I had to come up with. Not to mention, I had to figure out how I was going to ship out all these pre-orders because I knew I wasn't going to put all that product in my apartment. Yeah. And I wasn't going to be dragging it to the post office. And then I had to figure out, then I had offered free shipping on the pre-orders. So
okay, girl. So now you're taking a cut from your actual like revenue. Yeah.
And so calculating this all up around August, a few weeks before my birthday, I'm going to owe about 25,000 between the getting the inventory out, to the finding a fulfillment center, which I did, and paying for shipping. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And this was during a time I wanted to buy a home. I just knew it was my last year living in my apartment. And I just had to figure it out. My credit plummeted during that time because I'm figuring it out. And I will say, I don't want to peel too deep in it, but like I had started this brand and I had asked a friend to come along for the journey because I was tired of being a solo founder. So I was like, if I launch any other brand, I'm going to do it with someone else because I don't want the brunt of the work to be on myself. And so I brought in a close friend who had experience with the ingredients as well. Because I've been talking about Dim and IDC to everybody and their mama since
you know about that Dim, okay?
Right. She had a really great fibroid story from it. And I just romanticized us being on covers of magazines together and just really being on this ride together. And it just didn't turn out in that way. And so behind the scenes, people didn't see me going through losing a friend, not only losing a friend, but spending thousands on mediation sessions and lawyers. Wow. And, being threatened. Well, I won't say threatened, but getting correspondences asking me to pay over $266,000 to someone when our brand hadn't even launched. And I felt so blindsided. I felt so just disappointment because it was just so different than what I had envisioned to start. And I had to ask myself many a times, like, what, I think a lot of it came from imposter syndrome, wondering, could I do this on my own? Could I? And, I've been holding this brand up on my own since September of 2020, mid-August, September of 2021. We went on to be a 6-figure brand within 4 months, and solely from just the work I was doing online, pushing it through my social media.
That I just want to make sure for the date. So, but you said, was that after, the breakup happen after that or before that?
Before.
Okay.
All
right.
And so I'm like, it was just so much work, promoting this product. I've never taken out a paid ad on Facebook, IG, et cetera, yet. Still haven't done paid ads on Facebook, IG, et cetera. And we have over 40, I think almost 50%. I think we're at 50% returning customer rate. I think it would be even higher if we weren't doing bi-monthly versus monthly. We have crazy conversions, like 12% conversions in our store when the industry average is 2 to 5%. And so I have to say this because, I underestimated myself a lot when it came to this industry. But I was able to do this with not a lot of help, and with me having something bubbling in the back end that was both personal and professional, personal and career. So yeah, I never once thought I want to get I had if you run a product-based business, you're going to be in a negative a lot unless you selling digital products. You always got to refill that inventory.
Yeah.
Right. So you think you got money in the bank and then you got to go put in 50,000 more in inventory. And it's like, shit, now I'm back to negative, So, it's been those were the times, like, just seeing how far in debt I felt like I was getting with how far in a negative. Those are times I was like, I'd be feeling like giving up here, but I've never felt like giving up over all the other stuff, because I'm like, when it's that type of stuff going on, I know this is a good story. And it better have
a good idea, right? Because what if it was something that wasn't worth going to mediation over?
Absolutely.
All right, girl, you can have it. You can have it.
And that's how you're on to something, when you just, it's all this craziness. You know what? So yeah, I hate this for us. I do, because it's beyond business. Yeah. This is about friendships and personal. And me not thinking I would ever be here with someone I have called a friend. And she may have a totally different view or story of how this panned out. And she has every right to, have her truth as well. So that, yeah, it's tough. And for me, it just has put so much on my plate, because again, I'm trying to create community. I'm running contests, Flo Girl contest we just had. We're doing challenges in July. We're doing workshops. We're doing all types of things to keep women. We have all these ebooks coming out. I'm about to do this young girl's podcast. She's 12 and just recently came on her period. And she asked me to do her podcast. So cute. And I'm like, she needs to be the young face of this brand. So that she can take people that are her age on this journey of her being able to love her period and to be able to understand her period. Because when we were that age and we came on our period, They just gave us a pad, a tampon, and sent us on our way. They didn't tell us what was happening inside our body, what to expect. And so I want a different outcome.
That is so true. It's funny because whenever I think about it, it's like now that I'm an older, I'm like, why did I do this? When I got my period, so I had an older sister, so there were pads in my house, right? But my mom didn't talk to me about periods, right? Or, like I used to read the books. I had a little American Girl, My Period and Me, whatever that book was that they had. And when I got my period, I hid it from my mom for a year. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know why, but I just was so shameful, or I just felt so much shame. And I also was like, I don't want to grow up, right? Because my mom always said, now you're a woman or you're going to be a woman, right? And I just didn't want to become a woman. I'm like, I still want to be a little girl, right? And
they just told us you can get pregnant now. So it didn't feel like, like instead of like this wonderful thing that is going on in our body, it's like you can get pregnant now. It felt so negative and so scary. I feel like it's funny because her mom listened to the message she sent me and was like, it's so crazy that she's so secretive about her period with me, but she left you this whole message about how she wants you to be on her podcast and like all the things, and she wants to talk to you about all this. And I'm like, but I want to peel into her feelings around her period and what makes, I do want to know what makes her ashamed to talk to her mom about it and have those conversations. I want to release ebooks that help, like worksheets and workbooks and ebooks that help parents have that conversation with their kids and help their kids better understand what's going on. Because, they've never really told us you're on your menstrual cycle every day of the month and you have 4 phases of your menstrual cycle. You have your period week, which is menstruation. Am I saying that right? Because I always get that.
Menstruation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like everybody says it different.
Because I always get that word. And it's like, girl, you need to know. Right.
Yeah, I just say period.
Exactly. It's the easiest, period.
Yeah.
But then you have the follicular stage. That's
when you go into ovulation, right?
Then you got ovulation after the follicular stage. And then you have the luteal phase. And ovulation literally is only the actual egg being released is only 12 to 24 hours out of each month. The only reason why we have, a window of fertility because sperm can live in the body up to 5 days or so. So if sperm is already in the body by the time the egg is released, it's waiting. It's ready to waiting. But ovulation is a very short period of time. They had us thinking we could get pregnant every day of the month.
Yo, I just thought about this, Necole. So I remember in college, so this is me telling a little story here, but in college, Plan B, sometimes things happen, right? And I remember like taking Plan Bs when it was like the end of my cycle, but just thinking, I don't want to get pregnant. My period's coming tomorrow, right? Yeah. And I'm like, why was I putting this in my body, number one? And the thing that I was thinking about is like, honestly, with this product, you're breaking the cycle you're legit breaking the cycle of not understanding our bodies. And that's where true empowerment comes, right?
Absolutely.
That really is true empowerment. Like me knowing like, okay, Raina, like you can only get, for most people, because of course some people, if your cycles aren't regular, there are some, variances here. But day 14, if you have a 28-day cycle, day 14, in between day 14, day 15 is like when you're going to get pregnant. So maybe if you have a little accident, like if you having sex during your period, or maybe at the end of your cycle, like you don't have to go and get a Plan B if something happens, because it's likely, right, that you're not going to get pregnant. But there's just so much fear. Like people put so much fear into this whole idea of what being a woman is and with sex and reproductive health. And you're taking the fear out of that and giving us back like this empowerment that I think a lot of times we forget that we have. Like you have control of your body and you can learn your body. That's the biggest thing, like learning your body. I once told myself, so maybe this is something I still need to probably get a little bit more balance with, but I can tell when like I'm really sad out of nowhere, right? I'm like, why am I sad, right? Like, why is everything making me like want to cry? And then 2 days later, I get my period, right? And I'm just like, So sometimes when I'm like thinking thoughts like, I don't want my podcast anymore. I don't want to do this. And I'm thinking like, what day is it? Is my period about to come? Like, is there something going on? So there are sometimes like you can know your body and your body is telling you, like you said, your period is like a hormone check for you. It really is a health check every month. Like, what's going on with you right now? What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because when I talk about birth control and the dangers and long-term health risks with, many forms, people are like, well, how do I prevent pregnancy? And that's mind blowing because they never taught us the fertility awareness method. They never taught us, about ovulation and the different, phases of the cycle. And that you can even look at your cervical mucus and tell by the texture when you're fertile and when you're not, or basal temperature. And I'm like, man, we have so much education to give, women so that they can be empowered and now they have full control over their fertility. So yeah, it's a lot of work that has to be done with My Happy Flo. And I can't wait to see how it blossoms over the next few years.
And how you blossom as well, because you blossom so much even from when we first chatted, right? Like in 2016, and just look at where you are now, even from like location changes, right? To just, I don't want to assume it, but I just feel like you are already confident, at least to me, right? But I feel like there's this new sense of confidence in you as well.
It is. And I think, like, I remember telling, it's weird because people treat me different with this wellness brand than when I was just the founder of XO Necole or a gossip blogger.
Bad
I get treated
like what? In what way?
No, in a good way.
Okay.
And it's relationship wise, personal life. I'm getting a lot more recognition for my work with My Happy Flo than any of the work I've done at XO Necole. And I put my foot in the XO Necole.
You did. And you helped so many other people, like even myself included, writing for the site for the time I did. Like you were really an empowering woman in that platform as well. So
yeah, but I'm getting so much more recognition and invites, like just taken seriously. And I'm happy. It's not like I'm out here looking for validation, but I'm just happy to see that the work makes a difference and people are seeing how necessary this is right now. So yeah, I'm super just excited.
What's next? Like, where do you, let's say we were to connect again in 2027. That seems so far off, right? Like, what do you hope that we're reflecting on in 2027?
Man, by then I hope My Happy Flo is like one of those like 9-figure like brands, like, and I mean, just a powerful player in the wellness space. Like, I'm talking, because what year is it?
2022.
I mean, yeah, I'm talking like, of course I want to build out the suite of products. I remember someone telling me, B. Dixon, she actually said to me, if you're going to do this thing, take up the aisles. So she's like, you do supplements now, but you may have to do pads and tampons. You may have to, go into all these different areas. And with the name My Happy Flo, it just really gives me the opportunity to expand in various ways. And it's still being in alignment. So I want to at some point do a My Happy Flo festival. And I'm talking about like, you got all these vendors that's around holistic health and hormones and period care. But really amplifying conversations around periods in a way that it's not so taboo in our culture anymore, but also in a way that's fun. I plan on doing sleepovers and girls' night ins around reproductive and menstrual health. So it's going to be a fun next 7 years for sure.
Yes. And you know what? No one's going to do it like you because you have so much experience with that stuff already. You know what I mean? You're not coming in here with events 101 experience, right? Like right. You're going to events 10.0, right? Like you know how to do it, right? And I think that's a lesson to everything you have done makes you who you are, right? And it leads you to where you can go next. So all that experience running a celebrity gossip blog, building XO Necole from the ground up, and just understanding the shifts and the nuances of everything, I feel like just gives you so much more perspective and just so much more room to just fly. So
it does.
I'm excited.
I want to use video content and campaigns to tell stories. So a lot of the things I was doing in media, I just want to transfer it to this period brand. It's funny, people, look at our Instagram and be like, the voice of this period company is so, I won't say spicy, but it's different than a traditional wellness brand.
Yeah.
And I do that on purpose because, yes, we have customers of all races, but I want to make sure Black women in particularly feel seen and heard and spoken to. And so I've been catering to Black women since the beginning of my career. I know how we speak. I know how we talk to each other. And so I've implemented that in the way we speak to our audience on social, as well as in our newsletters and all over the internet. Wherever you see My Happy Flo, we are speaking in a voice that isn't normally used when it comes to period care or wellness. So yeah. But I will say, shout out to brands like the Honey Pot that even made conversations around vagina wellness.
Right.
Because,
I had her on the show too. I want to say back in 2017 or maybe 2018 in her journey. And I'm just so proud of even how she responded to just people trying to come at her, as of late. And I just love her. I love Honey Pot and her mission.
I remember watching her going through that and thinking to myself, there's no me escaping that. It's no way I can escape that. Yeah. As this brand becomes bigger, I'm able to, I'm taking a slow pace. So our monthly revenue is just crawling because I'm not putting any extra money into ads, right?
Yeah.
So it's crawling, organic growth, word of mouth, marketing to the same group of people who've already bought. But it's because I'm trying to control the pace until I get enough help in to grow at us. Because the last thing I would need is, 5,000 orders come in overnight. Yeah. And there's people that's not even I haven't looped them in a customer journey properly. So I haven't been able to educate them properly. So they're taking it like Midolls versus taking it like a daily vitamin. And so I'm putting everything in place to set people up for success, like the follow-up emails, the getting on the list, to make sure that, when we do start running ads, that they kind of got an idea of how to take it and what other lifestyle changes or nutritional changes they'd have to make to optimize their results. But yeah, I looked at what she went through and I was like, man, that'll be me one day in some type of controversy, because it just happens with any brand that's growing at such a huge rate. And I was like, am I built for this? I don't know if I'm built for this.
You are. Remember how you thought you couldn't run a business by yourself, Necole? And look, right? You built for it. Look at it. You did. Even when we were talking about on episode 63, when you talked about just the things you had to endure as a celebrity blogger, right? It was just, you endured it. Not saying that you should have had to go through those things, but we're built for so much that we don't even there are things that you don't even know you are built for yet because you haven't experienced it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's all a part of growing pains. And I'm just again, I'm just enjoying this. I wanted to rush things. And, I would love to have 5,000 subscribers of My Happy Flo by this time next year. But I'm laying the foundation right now. Like I said, the foundation, because people don't know. You have e-commerce, you need email flows. Yep. You need a customer journey. What happens after they purchase from you? How are you going to engage them after that? How do you make sure they purchase again? And so it's just so many steps and so many things you have to implement to even get to a place where you can monetize at that rate and become a 6-figure a month brand.
Yep. And it's funny because I used to work in e-commerce fulfillment marketing. So I worked at a fulfillment center. It was actually the fulfillment center that Cal's Lisa Price used before she sold to L'Oreal. And it's funny because there's so many things about just how that world works that I never would have thought about if I never worked at a company like that. And even now when having a podcast and talking to people about business, there are just certain what's your average order value? Right? Like, what's your retention order? Like, there's so many different things, like having one SKU versus many SKUs, right?
Absolutely.
You can be a successful one SKU brand if you do it right? And if you build your audience and then just be smart about how you scale from there. So there are just so many things that go into e-commerce. And I think a lot of people, you can build a hit e-commerce brand in a year, but will you be a one-hit wonder, right? And you're building your brand to be a long-term success. So I commend you for just refusing that itch to want to move really fast just so you can scale really fast. But you don't have to scale fast in order to grow long-term, right?
Right.
That's the big thing.
I'm so happy I just have one SKU right now. I mean, we may launch a probiotic later in the year, but just finding ways to market this one SKU is just like, I can't imagine if I had all these different items right now.
Right. And in the beginning, you're still learning the business too, right? Like, you also have to give yourself.
I can't imagine if it was items with sizes and I'm trying to guess sizes and like just this is one product. That's it.
Listen. So I know, we're going over time, so I want to just be conscious of our time here, but I do have one last question for you. There's somebody listening right now, right, who is saying these 4 words to themselves. Is it too late? Is it too late for my dream? Is it worth it? Like, what would you say to that person? Because I know for you, like, you turned 41 was it this year or last year?
It was last year.
Right? And that's a big number for you, right? An important number for you. Age, I should say. Like, what would you say to that person who's saying to themselves, like, is it too late for me?
This quote comes to mind, but I can't remember it. And it's about regret. But for me, it's going to be never too late for me to do anything. Like, I became a bodybuilder at the age of 37, a professional bodybuilder. I'm thinking about taking ballet classes. Maybe one day I'll become a pro ballet dancer. But for me, life is about living, and it's about pursuing your passions and your dreams. And I think, again, I read this book a long time ago called The Last Arrow. And I think it made a point in the book where it said, if you're, almost like if you've given up on your dreams, if you're not pursuing your passions, that you've already chosen your burial plot. And that really stuck with me. And it stuck with me because my mom, she chose her burial plot, and she chose the color of her casket. She showed me everything. And I remember when she was showing me all this stuff to let me know she only had like 2 weeks to live, I was just sitting there shocked at how does it feel for someone to plan their own funeral? How does it feel for someone to know that they only have less than 14 days left? And so that book put that in perspective for me, because if you're not going for the things that give you joy and your purpose, then you've basically already chosen to die, because you're not really living. I need something that's going to get me out of bed every single day, and My Happy Flo has been that for me. And I started My Happy Flo right before my 41st birthday, which was the age my mom was when she passed away. So for me, I felt up until that point, I had been living my life rushing everything, ruining relationships, ruining friendships, because I'm rushing the process, and I'm rushing because I felt like I was running out of time. And I had to change my perspective. What if you aren't dying at the age of 41? Yeah. What if you are actually about to start living?
Giving birth, right? Like, you legit gave birth to something that can go on beyond, that will go on beyond you.
Absolutely. So that's what I have to say
Thank you so much, Necole. This has been, as always, as our conversations are, this has been just so amazing. And I just want to say, give you your flowers while we're here together on this show, is just even with your platform, XO Necole, and giving me a space to write stories. You know, we had Sheridan on the podcast a few months ago, and her being my editor and working with you, and just you just believing in me. And there was this quote that I think I posted every now and then, like when we first did our interview, you were like, you were such a great question asker, Raina. Keep going up like mini Oprah. Something you said about that, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, thank you so much, because we all need somebody to believe in us, right? And we all need, like you said, that validation sometimes. And we all need that place that we feel empowered and just encouraged to keep going. So I just want to say thank you for being that for me along my own dream driving journey, and just for always believing in the show and the platform and what I'm building. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, you've been doing this since 2016. The amount of commitment, consistency, et cetera, it takes to run a podcast like this is, you know, I'm just so proud of you for keeping this up through all your different stages of life. We just seen you had a baby, like, you know what I mean? And it's just not easy. So thank you for the purposeful work.
Thank you. One last thing. If you want to be a dream driver, though, you have to have your keys to success. So, Necole, can you tell us 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
I would say resilience. Consistency. I don't feel like you can build a brand without consistently showing up as that, you know, how you want to be perceived or how you want your product or to be perceived. And you just have to have vision.
I love that. Resilience, consistency, and vision. And tell our dream drivers where they can find My Happy Flo, where they can purchase this life-changing supplement that will change their lives, right? In all sorts, in all meanings of the word. So let us know.
I want to say My Happy Flo has 3 plant-based ingredients and 7 essential vitamins in there. So you are you're condensing your vitamin routine with My Happy Flo. And you can find us at My Happy Flo. That's MyHappyFlo.co, not com, but co. And also myhappyflo.co on Instagram.
All right, Dream Drivers, that's a wrap for episode 323 with Necole Kane. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you love this episode, you already know what I would love for you to do. Please make sure that you're sharing this across social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dreams and Drive. I love to see you guys sharing it on Instagram stories, your Instagram page, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Help us grow the Dreams and Drive community by sharing Necole's message today. If you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly email updates delivered right to your email inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. And lastly, guys, if you are someone who has a great story and you would like to be featured on the show or pitch yourself to be featured on the show, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. That's dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again. Bye, guys.